Greetings. Thank you so much for tuning in and welcome to Earground and Your Voices Amplified. My name is Kulot Marco and I'm your host. And today I'll be speaking to an artist, a multidisciplinary artist who's working between fine art, visual art, sculpture, and a number of art forms, including even sound. I'll be speaking to Masimba Hwati, who's based in the US. Greetings, comrade. How are you?
Comrade, Magasimbere, I'm good. How are things? And both
Great, great. It's an honor to have you on this program. For a very long time, I've been wanting to have you as a guest, and I'm glad that today we managed to make it possible.
Thank you, comrade. The honor is mine.
Great, great. And just to start off with, let's start with Masimba Hwati, your upbringing, your background. Where did you grow up, and how was your childhood like?
All right. Thank you for that question. Saga, I was born in Highfield. In Highfield. Yes, Apafio. Ndopataka kurira. And my childhood was interesting. I always connect what I'm doing right now to my childhood. Saga Kufio, what used to happen is Taigara New camp.
Okay.
Very close to Mkuyisi River. Saka, you know that Mkuyisi River is the border that divides Highfield ne waterfalls. Yes. You know. So pane Chechia Walter Magaya Papa. But across that there was a place which we called Argentina.
Ah, okay. Why was it called Argentina?
Saka kwenzi kwa Argentina 1996 atimozoti Argentina yakawina World Cup yebhora.
Yes.
Saka mukucelebrate kweduka nekufara takapa nzvimbo iyoyo zita rekuti Argentina. Saka taienda ikoko after every day after school. Kwairaswa matoys, kwairaswa mawaya, kwairaswa zvinhu zvakawanda because time yekwangu kune maindustry aigadzira mawaya nematoys vaiprinta ma-t-shirts. Even mapepa ekuainira ma-t-shirts aya sublimation printing. Saka tainonhonga ikoko. So we called it Argentina.
Quite interesting.
Saka you find kuti that's where I started making things ikoko. You know, kubatanza zvino, just picking things, because work yangu is about found objects most of the time. I always started that discipline of putting things together and making things. Sandoma kuranda gaita in terms of becoming an artist. Ndakato from an early age I started having that sense of putting things together. And then takazoa kuchikoro takaenda isusu takadza mugeto kwanga kusina zveart chereke.
Which school was that?
Chipembere primary school.
Chipembere, okay.
Yeah, waitoona kutopinda busy manje nenyaya yekuda kuita
So you were a rebel to decide to do art.
Yeah, pamba kaipa because even but then I'm going to doubt. You know, Saga, you find with throughout primary school there was no official art education. Even secondary school ndakazoenda kunodza kupresbyterian kumondoro, still no official art. A-level ndakadzoka pahighfield high 1, still no official art. You know, then ndakazoenda papoly 2000. 2000 ndopa takazotanga kudzidza art officially, but ndiri munhu akanga agara zvangu ndichiita ndine interest ndichipractiza. Then after papoly tibva tapindawo maart world, takaintroducwa nanamukoma Chiko Chazunguza maart world. Ndopa takatanga kuitawo maworks tichishandawo paNational Gallery, paDelta Gallery. Then that was early 2000s. No. Mid 2000 actually.
Yes.
Then 2005-6 ndo patakazongosanganawo nanamukoma Plot Marco. Mixa. I think ndakatanga kusangana nemuchiprinta mapostage ebilika mutown.
Yes.
Then patataura. But from there, one thing led to the other. After that mbopractice stereki muZimbabwe, then internationally tichitendererawo muregion, tichitenderera kunana Europe tichipractice up until ndazodecide kuti ndada kuita masters yangu bandauya kustates kuzoita masters, and ene ndapedza masters takumbopractice timboona kuti zvakamira sei. Saka ndoka kashort history kacho.
Wow, that's quite interesting. I remember the first time that I really paid attention to your work, you were part of the set designers for HIFA. I think it was HIFA 2008, 2009, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And I also attended a couple of your exhibitions.
Mm-hmm.
And currently, you know, I've seen some of your new works. But what's quite interesting is that starting from just passion, from picking up toys and wires from Argentina, you developed that passion. You went into training for Poli. From then, now you're one of the finest, you know, artists coming from Zimbabwe, right? Did you see this coming?
No. Sikomredi tangoitawo zvinhu zvataita. But zvinoitika ndezvekuti the more you keep working and the more you connect with people, madoors anenge achivhurika. But ndandine hangu desire, to be honest, just to be relevant, you know, globally nemuZimbabwe. But you know, it's just a desire. So you'll be working on that. But some of the things that have happened and are happened, you know, okay, you know, but munhu anga ane desire to just become relevant.
Great. And what would you regard as the major highlight of your career so far? This was really like sort of the peak all year together.
Okay. That's a good question. I think so far, maybe it's still too early to define, but I think one of the major highlights for me was co-represent Zimbabwe at the Venice Biennale in 2015. I think it was important because of the size of the platform, the Venice Biennale.
Yes.
It's like the Olympic of the art world, where you meet everybody who is relevant, everybody who is influential, everybody who is important. It's a platform where no matter what you are doing, once you are there, you become visible. So I think it opened certain doors for my career and provided some kind of confirmation as to Saka, I think that was, so far I can say that's one of the major highlights, because you begin to have conversations that are more critical and more international when you are in that platform. So I think that was a good platform for me.
Wow, great. But looking back, you mentioned that there was no art in schools, primary schools, secondary schools, and it's still the situation with so many schools right now. I'm also one person who wanted to really get involved in arts, but I never had the chance to, because there was none of that in schools until you get to tertiary education.
That's right.
And what's your feeling with regard to the curriculum now in Zimbabwe when it comes to the inclusion of art? Because I feel it's still not being taken so serious. What's your sentiment on that?
I think it takes government policy and lobbying kuti tikwanise kunyazosvika patinoda nyaya yemaarts. The government here is concentrated on STEM, which is good, you know. But you know, I've heard a lot of people talk about STEAM, which include the arts. But so far, I think tine government yekuti haisati yanyatso kuona benefit yema-arts. Vane very, very basic benefits. Saka, I think zvinotora time. I think basa redu isusu sema artists is not only to keep practicing and creating awareness, but also to lobby, to find ways of lobbying or of talking to government. Yakakosha izvozvo because ma-artists kazhinji kacho talking to institutions or governmental institutions is a very big thing. Hatina language yacho dzimwe nguva yavanokwanisa kunzwisisa, you know, kuti vanyatsoona kuti zvinhu zvine basa. But you know, I'm happy because vanhu vakaita sana Mukoma Chiko neDzimba Nhete, amongst others, there are people who are engaging government. It's a very, very, very tough thing to do, because usually government is very narrow and very focused on certain things, especially at this time, you know. Saka practice creating awareness, but also lobbying. Right now, I think a number of artists, important artists that I know, are outside of the country, which is a good thing for them individually. But I think in Kufamba Kwenguaga, we must begin to create structures and feed that back into the country. You are a good example, Earground. You know, it's not based on the ground. Well, it's on the ground.
Yes, true.
Maybe not Zimbabwe as much as it is outside, but what it's doing is creating my bridges. Why? So that one, and there are many other organizations, even Zimbabwe Cultural Center of Detroit,
which you are part of. I also wanted to ask about that.
Yeah, which I'm part of. So I think tikaramba tidaro ma-artist, while we are building our careers anywhere we are, zvinotibatsira in the future. The truth is, it will take time for art to become part and parcel of education system in the way that we want.
Great. Is there a place for an artist in Zimbabwe? Do you think an artist in Zimbabwe can live off their art and be successful within the Zimbabwean space?
It's possible, but it's very, very, very tough. I've got good examples of people who are doing that, especially fine art. People that we work with who are doing quite well. But they are doing well because they have a good international market. You know, they are connected to several markets that are international, so they are able to sustain themselves. And mari inobva kunze kana muZimbabwe dzimwe nguva inogona kuachiva zvinhu zvakawanda because of the strength of the currency. Saka there are people who are doing things right now. But I think for an ordinary person, ordinary artist, is not let's say, but also the cake is small, you know. So not everybody will do well as an artist in Zimbabwe. Saka I think only a few people strategically positioned in relationship to my markets are doing well. But situation in atinama structures akasimba no support art. Saka no suffocate among my artists. That's why people begin to move out.
Okay, great. And you mentioned the international Zimbabwean art on the international platform. Where are we? Do we have a space? Have we managed to make it? Are we represented? Do we get the kind of recognition that we should be getting?
Yes, I think we are quite well represented as Zimbabwean artists. Saka, I think 2011 ndo pakatanga the first Zimbabwean pavilion ku Venice Biennale, which according to me was the biggest international presence that we have ever had in a long time. Before that, stone sculpture, which is good. But in terms of contemporary art, I think 2011 ndo patakatanga kunasovhurika attention towards Zimbabwe. So we have a lot of artists right now who are representing Zimbabwe well on the international platform of visual artists. I can think in a chronological order. Tinogona kutanga Nana Mukoma
Gutsa, yes.
Nana Mukoma Chiko. And ndinokutaura hangu vestone sculpture because I think that is already known. Nana Mukoma Gutsa, Nana Mukoma Chiko. And then tine vanhu vakaita sana Mishek Masambu, yes, Gareth Nyandoro, Virginia Chiwota, Portia Zvavaera, Mofat Takadiwa. Mukatarisa vanhu ava vari kurepresent ma-generations ema-artists. These are different generations who have good international representation. And they carry the banner of RTM Zimbabwe. So I think we are represented, even though I want to see more. I want to see more representation and more critical representation. I think we'll get there. Yeah.
Wow, awesome. Before I get more into detail about your work, the work that you're making, narratives that you're pushing, I wanted to ask in terms of documentation. You've mentioned so many interesting names. For me, I know most of them because of just an interest working in the arts, researching. But for an ordinary person on the street, if you mention these names, they will not know. I mean, they know Zim dance or they know other art forms and stuff. But when it comes to visual artist, and I was telling one person that I passed through one airport in the States at one time and I saw Zimbabwean art. And here in Germany, you see a lot of Zimbabwean art. But a lot of these names, when you go back at home, they are not known. Do you feel there's enough documentation, there is enough awareness and knowledge about the artists, apart from those that are in performing arts?
Apana, documentation edu is still very poor, unfortunately. We have not documented well the visual arts. But I think I seen a documentation yet.
Yes.
Problem in visual arts in the most of the time, visual arts or they are doing it for an outside market. They bypass the local market.
Yes.
Part of the reason they who is going to invest in this thing in Zimbabwe. Saka almost everything is made for a foreign market, which is I think a big problem that we have to discuss with Saka. How do we include our own people in this equation?
Yes.
And yes, it's true. You might not get as much financial investment locally, but we also still have a responsibility of including our own people. Saka pane kati elitist mbichana kachiripo pa visual art. It's not as democratic as I think it should be. Saka, I think one of the conversations my artists here, tunofana kuita my visual artists, and they would, how do we include our own people, not just ungogadzira zvinhu zvematourist kana international market, because without a home base, eventually you would crash. You will crash because you don't have roots.
True.
Saka, I think we really need to have those critical conversations. It's different from performing arts and from music, because music and other forms of arts that we know, they directly communicate to the people. I think we have to learn something from that, and this idea of the artist who is disconnected from his society, we need to change that. That is not a healthy thing at all. We have seen that, and we have seen that it has not helped anybody. So eventually, no matter how celebrated you are internationally, there's a time that you have to come home. You have to have roots. Otherwise, what's going to happen is it's just going to sizzle out at some point. Saga, right, comrade, it's a conversation that we seriously need to have. So besides the documentation, which we don't do very well as my visual artists, I think there are also other issues that we need to get together and think would straighter say to get people involved in what we are doing.
Great. Getting people involved, I think it also speaks to the kind of narratives that are also coming through from different pieces.
Yes.
And now back to your art, to your work. You are a multidisciplinary artist. You're not only focusing on visual art, you're also playing around with sound. You're playing around with sculpture, with a lot of unconventional elements that you put together. How best do you describe your work?
I think in the experimental. because I'm always looking for new ways to say the same things. Saka initially ndakatanga ndichiita ceramics nepainting.
Okay.
Saka ndaiumba stereki nekupenda, but eventually I got into found objects, just using anything I could find,
Yes.
which I still do. But nekufamba kwenguva unotanga kuona kuti medium yese ine limitation yayo, you know. There are certain things that are very, very difficult to express through painting only, kana kuti sculpture only. So you begin to find ways of trying to mediate that. Saka I think panozoti interdisciplinary is a way to try to find kuti how best can I continue talking about what I'm talking about, but in different ways. I think in my visual artist, we have a privilege. Yekuti you can be flexible. So not gonna kusiyana mbichana ku other types of art forms, like as music and maybe performing arts, because the risk is bigger there. But it's also we have a privilege. You can actually exist between my disciplines. Like I'm always trying out new things. I've worked with performance before. I've worked with some musicians. Right now, I'm really interested in the sound. You know, I'm interested in things that make sound. Sometimes I create my sculptures and make a sound. You know, just trying to find how best to communicate. You know, and experiment with things. So I'm going to open this so far.
Quite interesting. You're talking about your experiment around sound.
Yeah.
And what I find quite interesting is that whilst you're experimenting, a lot of your artwork still remain rooted. You still have a lot of connection to your identity, to Zimbabwean tradition and culture. And currently you've got an exhibition. You've got one of your projects that involves an instrument that recently got an international recognition by Google. We're talking of Mbira music.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Could you just tell us a bit about your current project with the Mbira instrument?
All right. Saka project dear Manji Comrade Diabudara. It's an old project.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I think ndakapedzera kushanda Mbira directly 2016.
Okay.
Saka ndakangowana mukana from the Earground to feature that. Let me give them a project yandakaenda kudhara.
Awesome.
Which hasn't found a lot of attention. But now that it was featured in the newspaper, I'm thinking that I need to go back to it because there is still a lot to exploit. But the project was basically kuti ndakaona kuti no, tine mbira yedu yatinayo, which is a traditional Zimbabwean instrument.
Yes.
And I think we have a responsibility to develop it or to advance it. Saka one of the things that I wanted to do was just to play around nembira yacho. Ndakatanga ne form. All right, we have got this form. What kind of a form can it be? You know, what are the variations?
Yes.
And I got different forms of the same mbira. Then I actually went to the sound itself and we improve say. Ndakawedzera my keys. In some of them, they can combine different types of mbiras or different types of mbiras dzange different keys. In an effort to tungozama kuona kuti how can we make this thing better? Because see, the thing about culture, just because it's your culture, it doesn't mean that it's perfect. As ma British akati colonize ndo akauya akabvamisa culture akati ndo zvanga zviripo. But we have the responsibility to develop those things. So I think mbira ine possibilities akawanda stereki. Akawandisa zvekutodika we might not be able to exhaust them. And you see, the scary thing is if we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it.
Yes.
You know, and right now there is there was some attention that was cast on the Mbira pa Google.
Yes.
But for many years, we have people from all over Europe, all over America who come to Zimbabwe to learn Mbira. But they also take Mbira and modify and develop.
True.
One. Saga, if we sleep around and complain and say things but not do things and funget pane kwatuwe. Saga, I've always been developing Mbira. And as I've got one.
Yes.
Okay. It is an extra set of keys Bamsora. I've always done that. Saga, you find what my possibilities akawandisa comrade chinichikachi. Chinogona kuita zvakawanda. We can, I think Hector Mfaromgan was working on something too.
Yes.
But my possibilities akawandisa. I don't think it's about being stuck in time. It's about preserving the integrity of the instrument, but also having the liberty to experiment and to go as far as you can without fear. Yes. And at final which comrade. That's the idea. Yeah, that's the idea.
Wow, great. And there's somebody who's watching right now who has a passion for art. But apparently, there's not so much of inspiration around them. They don't feel encouraged. They don't see an economy around, fine art, visual art, and some of these kind of, three-dimensional artworks. What would you say to them? How can they get started?
Comrade, that's an important question, Amando Fonza. I want to go back to my own history. So when we started out, there was really nothing, in terms of support market wise. Yes. But what I know is if you are focused on what you are doing,
yes,
if you focus on what you're doing and invest your time and are consistent. Yeah, consistency is a very, very important word. And are consistent and you are humble. That combination of things will open doors. As an ambassador de Rukupi, kana time yashika, things will open up. I know Guti in that generalize, I know Guti pakataba pane a lot of things that can be said. But I think the most important place to start from is that focus, hard work, consistency, humility. Comrade. The truth is, and it's easy to lose hope. But the more we are talking about our own narrative and focusing on what we are doing, the more the world is interested, the more things will open up.
Wow, great, awesome. Before closing, you are part of the Zimbabwe Cultural Center of Detroit. A project that has seen tens of artists working between the two countries, from the States via Detroit and Zimbabwe. And also involving the Chino University of Technology and other institutions, galleries, and also musicians. Frank Slomo was part of the project, and you're working with Chiro Johnson together with Zaza Kumlani Zamchia.
Yes.
Could you just give just a small insight into that initiative?
Saka, Zimbabwe Cultural Center of Detroit yakatanga around 2010 with Kumlani Zamchia and Chiro Johnson.
Yes.
And they established these two spaces Muharare kukuwadzana. Marain Gwarazaz.
Warren Park.
Warren Park, then ku Detroit. Marain Gwachido. So they were communicating between themselves and connecting artists. So I became part of that economy of my artists Wangawari involved Tichitama projects, and from there I've contributed. I still work with the organization, but the idea is to connect the two spaces, and we have brought people from Detroit to Zimbabwe I think Magambo na Halim around 2015. Last year we brought Halima, another artist, and we are still working on bringing other artists from Detroit to Zimbabwe. But we've also taken artists from Zimbabwe to Detroit, Pama residents. Our Slomo was one of them. Kumbulan Zamshia was also part, I think twice, part of the exchange. I was also part of the exchange, and a few others. Saka, I think our focus is to try and connect spaces as we go to Zimbabwe and Detroit. And there are a lot of interesting parallels between the two spaces. Saka, it keeps us going, just keeping the communication between the two spaces.
Wow, great. And before we close our conversation, what keeps you going? What inspires you? You are not on the ground, but you remain very inspired in working. You pushing the Zimbabwean art, Zimbabwean narrative. What feeds into your creative process?
So I think first of all, as an artist, I'm speaking for myself. I have a responsibility, first to God, second to my country. So it's about what I'm created to do in my destiny. Saka keep going, and as the world opens up to you, as you see different things, we have a big responsibility as artists. Especially to our people too, to continue doing what we do. Saka when I look at that responsibility, kana kurara chako because there's a lot that needs to be done, and there are people who have gone before us who have done work, and we should carry that responsibility and also give it to the next generation. Saka pani basa rakawanda. So just looking at the amount of work that is there, it just keeps me going.
Wow, awesome. And your word to Zimbabwe right now, the Zimbabwean creatives.
Yeah, I think we are in a very, very difficult time, not only as a country, but as the whole world. But I think my word is let's hold on to hope. It's very easy to say, to make negative things or to say negative things. But right now, I think what our people need and what the world needs is some kind of hope, something to hold on to so that we can pass through this period. Saka, I think let's think hope, let's talk hope, let's make hope.
Wow. Awesome. Let's speak hope, let's think hope, let's make hope. From Masimba Hwati, a multidisciplinary artist who's based in the States, but working a lot between Zimbabwe and so many other places. Thank you so much. It's been awesome, profound speaking to you, and I learned so much, and I hope also our viewers and our listeners are able to grasp 1 or 2, 3 things that will help our creative industry grow.
Thanks, comrade. Mairabas.
You are most welcome, comrade. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Great. Thank you so much for watching Earground New Voices Amplified. It's been awesome speaking to you guys, and stay tuned. Until next time, we give you more programming, Zimbabwean artists that we're featuring from time to time. And the plot thickens. Plot Marco, I'm out.